As an actor, I am fascinated with stories.
It's amazing that something like this still exists.
And Singapore is a perfect source for this.
Whoa!
What surprises does it hide? Or mysteries to answer?
Oh.
Join me, Adrian, as I go on a journey to explore and unravel Singapore's secrets. Here on History Mysteries.
Since its opening in 2015, the Sports Hub has hosted many iconic events such as the 2016 National Day Parade, concerts by global music acts, as well as football matches by internationally renowned teams. But for the older generations in Singapore, it is the Sports Hub's predecessor, the National Stadium, that holds special memories. But the National Stadium is also the site of a baffling mystery that has stumped the sporting fraternity for about 13 years now. And surprisingly, this mystery has got something in common with Singapore's oldest Catholic church. What is it? Well, would you be surprised if I said time capsules? And what do time capsules have to do with this mystery?
The term time capsule itself was only coined in 1938. Essentially, time capsules are a cache of goods and information which are meant to help future generations understand societies that came before. In Singapore, we have our share of time capsules being buried, most often to commemorate a certain event or when a foundation stone is being laid at the start of a building's construction. So 3 years before the National Stadium was opened in 1973 by then Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, a time capsule was buried under the foundation stone of the National Stadium by then Finance Minister Goh Keng Swee. The capsule was meant to be dug up and displayed to the public at a later date.
37 years later, in 2007, the Singapore Sports Council, which managed the stadium, hired a team of contractors to unearth the time capsule. Now, this was just months before the stadium was due to be torn down to make way for the Sports Hub. But lo and behold, the time capsule had vanished. If I were to tell you that there used to be a time capsule buried underneath the National Stadium, what would you say?
Oh, I didn't know about it. No, I've never heard of it before.
Is it?
Never heard before.
No. This time capsule was buried in the 1970s sometime under the National Stadium, but when they tried to unearth it, it disappeared.
Yeah, that's weird actually.
Not quite possible, right?
It's quite cool actually.
Quite cool.
I mean, you wouldn't know what happened to it, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's a mystery.
Yeah, which is quite cool.
Don't care? Do you care that there was a time capsule?
No.
You don't care? Well, it doesn't seem like many people know about this missing time capsule, but I think I know someone who can help me in my quest to find out more.
Meet C. Kunalan, who is also a two-time Olympian and one of Singapore's sporting icons. Someone who was present when the time capsule was buried in 1970.
I'm here to talk to you about this legendary fairy tale almost about this missing time capsule. So what was your personal reaction when you found out that this time capsule was missing back in 2007, I believe, right? What was your reaction?
When they told me that the time capsule was missing, I was shocked. And then I was surprised. But at the same time, I was sad.
What exactly was inside this capsule?
I won't know for sure. But I was told that there were a few coins, the current newspapers, and some sports memorabilia. But then, when I bring people around the museum and I talk about it, I will say, we had a packet of nasi lemak and a prata in there.
I would believe you if you told me that.
Yes, for fun, yeah.
But you actually got to see the capsule?
The capsule, yes, we were there. There were a few runners who brought it from City Hall.
Right.
And then the last guy was my teammate by the name of Nur Azhar Hamid.
Okay.
He was our high jump champion.
Right.
But I remember him handing that capsule to Dr. Goh Keng Swee. It was not very bulky. It's nice and very streamlined capsule. It's a slender.
But solid and opaque, you couldn't see through it
no.
to see
Copper.
what was, couldn't see the nasi lemak inside.
A copper.
Copper, right.
Copper.
Okay, it wasn't too heavy either.
Yeah. So I remember that after Dr. Goh put the capsule into the concrete casing, there was a slab to cover the casing,
Right.
and then there was cement to cement it and seal it.
Right.
And then my role was to hand Dr. Goh the trowel for him to use to smoothen the cement.
Okay.
And then I was out of the scene.
Right.
But so I remember that part.
But after the capsule was covered up, was there a plaque or anything to say there's a time capsule here?
I can't remember.
Right.
But most probably there would have been some
Right.
kind of a marker. And
Right.
plaque. Of course.
Even that's gone.
Yes.
So it seems to me your visual impression of that occasion is very clear. Do you know exactly where it is or the geographical location of it?
It was at the old stadium's west entrance.
The old stadium's west
West
entrance. Okay.
Okay. Of course, at that time there was nothing there, just open land, all getting ready for construction and so on. And so they had set this up, and then there was a place for the capsule. And so this was at the west entrance.
Right.
So, facing Nickel Highway,
Okay.
that side.
But what is your personal theory of what happened?
Okay. For me, I think it's like this. This location where the capsule was buried, the ground was, all this area was swampy. River. It was a riverside, river bank. So it was really, really porous ground. So I at that time, I said that this capsule probably just sank and sank and sank and disappeared. Why did I say that? Because I also recall that in those days, the very first contractor went bankrupt because he was piling and piling and piling, and the piles kept disappearing. So this could have happened to that capsule. It could have also just sunk and then sunk away somewhere.
Any other theories, perhaps, might there be for this missing capsule?
Okay, the capsule was, when it was buried, they had built a fountain and some plants around it, also at the west entrance. But I also heard that this was moved because they said that when hordes of people came out of the stadium, 60,000 people coming out from the west entrance, and then this fountain was in the way. Although I can't imagine that, how could a fountain be in the way? People can go around it, right? But they did say that because of that, when they moved the fountain, then they may have forgotten about the time capsule.
Could the rumor be true? That the time capsule went missing when the fountain was removed? I decided to do some digging of my own. Surprisingly, I was able to find a picture from the 1970s that showed a fountain in the front of the main staircase at the west entrance. But by 1985, another picture of the National Stadium's west entrance no longer had a fountain. So there might be some credence to this rumor after all.
In comments made to the media in 2007, Singapore Sports Council officials said that the time capsule is likely to have been buried underneath the VIP car park. Now, this car park is at the bottom of the staircase on street level leading up to the grandstand concourse in the stadium. Now, these officials also added something a little bit strange. They said that they had documents to guide them, but that these documents were not accurate.
So 13 years after learning of the mysterious disappearance of the 1970 time capsule, we are no closer to solving the mystery of its location. The missing time capsule is indeed quite a cultural loss for Singapore. I speak to retired journalist Suresh Nair to get his take on it, as someone whose job was to get the facts right and provide an objective view of events.
If you look from Singapore's perspective, we set world-class standards for almost everything, A to Z. Right, from airport to port to almost everything. Right? Stuff like this cannot happen in Singapore. Number two, a capsule is not, we're not playing hide and seek or anything. You know where the capsule is.
Yeah.
Right? And most times they'll put it below the memorial. That's what Dr. Goh Keng Swee did the last time and all. Right? So it's impossible to be missing.
I mean, when you learned about the disappearance of this thing, what was your immediate reaction? What did you feel? What did you think?
I'm mystified. I can't find an explanation. It's hard to believe. I think it's one of the biggest mysteries in Singapore.
Do you recall what the public response was like to the disappearance?
I think it would have been stupendous because a thing like this has never happened before. Somebody messed it up.
Right.
But
It's a mess up.
and it's not too late, right, to come out and say, right, use the right words, and then so the public can just close the chapter and move on.
Yeah,
right?
so we can have some, I suppose, a sense of closure.
Closure
to the
is
whole
very,
thing as
very
well.
important. If you have a honest closure, right, everyone believes you, they will salute you also.
The disappearance of the time capsule buried in the grounds of the old National Stadium remains one of the more baffling mysteries of Singapore. In spite of an extensive search as well as a $50,000 reward for information leading to its whereabouts, the time capsule remains elusive. Fortunately, other time capsules discovered in Singapore have enjoyed a happier outcome. Now, one of these was buried in 1843 and is believed to be the oldest time capsule discovered in Singapore.
Cathedral of the Good Shepherd along Queen Street was built in 1847, and it's the oldest Roman Catholic church in Singapore. In 2016, workers involved in the restoration of the Cathedral of Good Shepherd discovered a time capsule buried under the foundation stone of the cathedral. And to tell me more about this amazing discovery is Jevon Liu, a volunteer who was helping the church find and catalogue its historical artifacts as it underwent restoration.
Now, I believe you have quite an exciting story to tell us about how this particular time capsule was found.
So basically, the cathedral underwent restoration works from 2013 to 2016. And we knew that the cathedral had a foundation stone laying ceremony when it was first built. And that was in 1843.
Right.
And at that time, the newspaper reports said that the foundation stone plus the time capsule items were buried at the front of the church.
Okay.
And all the while, we thought that the front of the church was actually facing Queen Street. So when the contractors started works on the cathedral, we asked the contractor, could you, as part of your digging works, right, find out where the foundation stone and the time capsule items lie?
Right, so basically
Yes.
look out for it.
Look out for it, yes. In
Okay.
short, look out for it.
The contractors dug where the front of the church was supposedly...
Practically during the restoration of the church, we had to lay new foundations for the church. So practically everywhere in the church was dug up.
Right,
But they came back to us. They said, sorry, we couldn't find it. Probably it's lost forever.
The French Catholic missionary priests of the Cathedral of the Good Shepherd had buried a time capsule underneath the church's foundation stone in 1843. But during the church's restoration, it couldn't be found and was believed to have been lost forever.
We were disappointed, but never mind, we just went ahead with
still
the
had to go on
works.
with the
Yeah, you still had to
restoration.
go ahead with the restoration works.
Right.
So fast forward to 2015, at about 9+, the portico that was facing Victoria Street collapsed. So after the portico collapsed, right, we decided as a committee, the building committee, whether we should at least keep, one column one of the ruined column for future display.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we kind of picked the one that was still, quite good.
In good condition.
Condition,
After the collapse.
yeah,
How many of them were
So,
there?
so there are actually 8 columns.
Okay.
Yeah, we chose the one right at the corner. And it was the one that was at the corner of Bras Basah and Victoria Street.
Okay.
And then fast forward to the next year, sometime in, I think, January, the contractors came in to excavate that column that we chose.
Right.
And guess what? They put up that column, and what did they found underneath was the original foundation stone of the
Oh
church.
my goodness me. Was it in good condition? I mean, what did it look like?
It's a piece of granite stone with a cross incised on the top of it.
Okay.
What the people of that day did was that they dug kind of a box in the ground.
Okay.
Right? It was just basically just soil.
Right.
Right? And then they laid 2 bottles into that pit.
Okay.
Right? And then they covered that pit with the foundation stone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was pretty,
quite primitive.
yeah,
Yes,
pretty,
as you say.
yeah, that's right.
But the contents, more importantly,
Yeah.
were intact.
Inside the time capsule were actually 2 glass bottles. So when we found it, it was already broken. It's 177 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
This is like the soil.
the original soil
The soil.
from
we didn't
1843.
We didn't clean it. I mean, it gives it
Sure.
some kind of,
Yeah, absolutely.
aesthetic,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So what did it contain?
So it contained newspapers of the day, like the Bengal Catholic Herald.
Right.
Yeah. So this is a Catholic newspaper in circulation back in the 1800s. We also had secular newspapers, so like the Singapore Free Press newspaper. Yeah, so 177 years old, right? And other secular newspapers like the Straits Messenger. So this one is actually the oldest service book in Singapore. So this book was actually used for the foundation stone laying ceremony. The prayers are all contained inside. And I would say that this is the oldest service book that was used in Singapore.
The words inside are still
Legible.
Legible?
Yeah, they are legible. Yeah.
Amazing.
So from this document, you can kind of like, find out like what prayers they said, what songs they sang for that foundation stone laying ceremony.
Wow.
Yeah. So everyone was like really, really excited because, I mean, this is like the oldest time capsule or the oldest known time capsule in Singapore.
Found in Singapore,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Delving into time capsules has made me realize the importance of preserving our heritage and our history for the future. Now, needless to say, 2020 has impacted all our lives in unprecedented and totally unexpected ways. From compulsory mask wearing in Singapore to global lockdowns. So imagine if you were to create a time capsule to commemorate 2020, to be opened in 100 years by your great-great-grandchildren, what would you choose? If you were to be able to choose to put some items in a time capsule to commemorate 2020, what would you put inside?
Since 2020 was a bad year, right?
Was it?
Yes. Because of COVID, I think I will put in like mask, face shield, and some sanitizers.
I would put in my flight ticket in 2020 because I managed to go for my last trip just before circuit breaker starts.
Really?
Yeah.
Where did you go?
I went Taiwan.
You went to Taiwan
Like
just before circuit breaker?
End February.
Wow!
Yeah, so that was just before. And then I think that's like the last trip in a long while. Yeah.
And you still have this ticket?
Yes.
Fantastic. And was it a memorable holiday?
I'm so glad I went.
Definitely, I'll put some snaps of people without wearing masks because this year was completely where we were just finding masks in the beginning. So
Absolutely.
definitely, I'll do that for the first thing. Yeah.
So like photos of yourself
With
with
families,
friends, with a lot of
friends,
people
with all
in
of the
one.
people, at least the workplace people, everyone, because we have not seen their faces. We just see them faces on virtual side, right?
Photos of people hugging one
hugging each
another.
other. Yeah, that's true.
Oh, memories.
Memories.
The trace together token.
Very good. The Trace Together token, which are all part of our lives right now. Very good. Thank you.
Well, for me, these are the items that best represent 2020. First of all, we have, of course, a face mask, because this has become part of our new normal. Then we've got toilet paper. Remember when we all panic buying these things? Well, not me, of course. Aha! Hand sanitizers. Some of us have been showering in the stuff. This is a laptop charger to signify working from home. Running shoes, because physical activity became such an important thing for our physical and mental health. Food delivery became the in thing because we couldn't eat out. And most importantly, as far as I'm concerned, these expressions of thanks and appreciation to our healthcare and frontline workers for all their toil and sacrifice during this time. Well, I'm going to go and bury my time capsule. See you next time on History Mysteries.